Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on the Stir River, playing as the Lizardmen against the forces of the High Elves, or rather, the forces of Averlorn. So, for this match I decided to go with something a little bit ridiculous, a little bit trolly, and centered it on a Toad Lord, of course here, on his toilet seat, sitting around. But rather than going with, say, a bunch of cavalry or horned ones or monsters, I decided to just go with a bit of a blunt force composition, a front line of skink cohorts to soak up missiles to apply some flank pressure, 2 Temple Guards as an anchor, 2 Saurus warriors on the flanks, all shielded of course, and then 2 Croxigors behind that to provide that AP anti-infantry punch. In the back we do have the Cold One Spear Riders, because after my experience in the tourney where I was playing against, I do believe it was Romulan Dog, and I got completely dumpstered because when I was trying to troll around with Sun Mage Priest because he got sniped out by Carl. So since that I decided, you know what, we're going to bring an escort of Cold One Spear Riders. And over here on this flank we do have Horned Ones, backing a unit of Skinks, as well as a Saurus Scarvet, who's actually not mounted on a Carnosaur because I just didn't have the money. And I figured I didn't want something easy to snipe with arrows, so I just brought him on a Cold One. He's got Foe Seeker, Potion of Strength, Plaque of Dominion, as well as Deadly Onslaught, so he's actually kitted out to the teeth. With everything you can bring. Though we don't have any terror-causing units in this army, which, you know, means that I won't be able to cause any premature mass routes. My opponent, he did decide to bring Alariel the Radiant. This is actually Elder Basilisk once more. I've actually run into him several times now on the ladder, but this was another game against him. Alariel the Radiant here, who is not exactly kitted out to the teeth. She's on an eagle. She's got Earth Blood, Shield Stone of Isha, False Protection, of course the 2 on cast procs, and then Star of Averlorn, of course, for that cheaper Earthblood, as well as the healing, extra healing. Flamespire Phoenix here with, of course, the bombardments. I'm not entirely sure what the logic behind the Flamespire Phoenix is. He definitely has AP, and he's a pretty nasty damage dealer, but very squishy, so we'll see how he does. Star Dragon in here as well. One of the other things I think worth keeping in mind is that a lot of these bombardment spells don't actually do all that well against the Saurus, because, yeah, they'll do well against Skinks, but Skinks are garbage and you don't really care about losing them. But Saurus, because they tend to be pretty wide in their formations, and they don't have too many models. They've got a lot of high HP models. Because of that, things like the Flamespire Phoenix don't tend to do that much damage to him overall. Now for the rest of my opponent's build, he's got a front line of some Spearmen here to soak up charges and soak up missiles, some Dryads, a shooting line of Lothan Seaguard with shields, as well as a single unit of Sister of Averlorn, and then 2 units of Swordmasters to provide a real bunch of anti-infantry or punch. And Swordmasters can definitely mow through any Saurus infantry very, very efficiently. This is one of the matchups where they can really, really shine, in my opinion. Now, unfortunately, over here, my Croxigors are getting walloped by the Star Dragon, and my Temple Guards also get roasted pretty badly. Then that's a model losses, so I won't be able to really recover any models there. In the meantime, my Skink Cohort here taking a pounding, but honestly, 300 gold, I don't know. These arrows might be more expensive than the stuff lost in the Skink Cohort, so I'm not too concerned. And you might be wondering why I'm running the Skinks wide here with my Horned Ones. Well, it's actually if my opponent, say, brought a bunch of Dragon Princes, the Skinks can then mix it up. They can run in alongside your Horned Ones. They can bog down the Dragon Princes, give you opportunities to either cycle charge or just protect your Horned Ones from taking the full brunt of the attack from the Dragon Princes. Unfortunately, over here, my Croxigors are taking a pounding, and I don't actually have heals because I didn't bring Mazdamundi. So I don't have any source of healing. I don't have Apotheosis or stuff like that. You can see over here the Skinks are going to push in as my opponent actually pushes forward to start sniping away at the Mislan Mage Priest, but of course he does have the benefit of that 45% missile resist. Now my opponent is going to pivot his Sisters of Averlorn up around them towards my Horned Ones, but they're shielded by the woods. They're pretty safe, and they're going to be able to start swinging in against them from the rear. And now the Skink Cohorts are in, and of course they're going to be taking on these Swordmasters like no problem. Like, these Swordmasters don't stand a chance. Just look at this. This is like the hard counter to these guys. But in all seriousness, this is a bit of a mess. But my opponent did blob up a whole bunch here, trying to save his sisters or protect his sisters. And this Earthblood is not going to save him from this very, very powerful banishment, which just plows through. And I immediately follow up with a Wind Blast, which is just going to annihilate this entire formation. And in come the Horned Ones. And these very angry lizards are going to tear through this formation incredibly quickly. They're going to get the recharge penalty. And this is going to be a huge collapse. Over here on this flank, you can see Star of Averlorn is going to go down, which is going to back up these Swordmasters. But the thing is, Croxigor just crack these guys like an egg. They just stomp all over him. And so I think these are going to be in a very bad spot. You can see that guy's getting munched on and death rolled. Some brutal stuff. And Swordmasters in full flight, just running for dear life there. My opponent, though, he's been sniping down at my Salon Mage Priest. I hit him with a Cold-Blooded trying to heal, but he's going to dive in there with Lariel, the Flamespire Phoenix, and all those troops. And I actually forgot my Cold One Spear Riders in the back. I had them on a hockey and everything, but only now they're moving. But fortunately, the Star Scarvet is coming in. He's going to dive in from the flank, go after Lariel. We got Curse of the Midnight Wind going, which is really helping protect me here. Also, helping my Stars get a bit more value against some of these troops. But regardless, we're going to be able to collapse these Swordmasters over here. The Croc Scourge doing so much damage, and you can see these guys actually have a respectable amount of HP here. They've got 51 models. They've got well over half HP. Still have Martial Prowess active, and they've been routed off the field, and that is a huge loss for my opponent. That really shows how bad isolation can be for you. Now, unfortunately, the Salon Mage Priest is going to get pounded here and get terror routed by the Dragon. But I've at this point just piled all in against the Star Dragon, going in against Lariel, just surrounding these guys, beating the snot out of them. Mini Mazdamundi here is full retreat, but who really cares? At this point, it just doesn't matter that much. My opponent is essentially out of options. He's casting a False Protection to try to keep himself alive, but regardless, we got this round. The Horned Ones, of course. Now, sure, they're going to rampage here, which is a little unfortunate, but at this point, it doesn't matter that much. The Horned Ones are a really potent unit, and they're going to be dishing out a lot of hurt, especially once False Protection wears off. They're going to tear through the Star Dragon with ease. And the Croc Scourge, in the meantime, you can see running down these Swordmasters who actually have rallied a little bit, but we're going to get recharging here with the Croc Scourge, and of course they do have some pretty high AP strength. The Star Scarvet, my opponent is trying to focus him pretty hard. He's getting another Earthblood in there, just healing as best he can. My Salon Mage Priest is actually going to rally out here on the in the back, and that's going to allow me to get a few more casts off magic. I actually pull my Star Scarvet out, get some heals on him, get some Cold-Blooded. We are going to cast another Curse of the Midnight Wind, which definitely shows the value if you need to be chasing guys down. I'm going to cast the Shield of the Old Ones to provide some magic resist to Phoenix, and before I'm completely destroyed and routed, we actually get the Aura of Quetzalcoatl, which is going to keep our leadership up for just a little bit. And before Lariel nails us, we are going to get a cast of Harmonic Convergence on our Cold Ones, which is going to be really bad for that Dragon. So you can, if we dig an overarching look, you can see the Skinks, of course, cheap unit, and they're just doing such a good job chasing all over the place. Swordmasters, you can see actually here, this is pretty cool, I think, just for demonstrating. They're up to 40 kills. They were slaughtering these Stars, despite being completely crippled. So that just shows how well they can do. But at this point, it's going to be GG, as my opponent's army simply shatters. So good game to Elder Basilisk here. Was a lot of fun. Going over the comp, I actually had a lot of fun with it. I'm not saying it's the most competitive. I'm really still hoping the Salon Mage Priest gets some buffs. I think they're honestly not bad. I think people underestimate them. I've seen some cool suggestions, perhaps give them some lore of high magic abilities, to maybe give them, like, just built in, maybe like a dual magic system. I've seen some suggestions to just buff up their missile resist even further, and a lot of stuff like that, and I think any of that could be good. The Salon Mage Priest, I think, is pretty close to being competitive, despite being pretty slow and pretty susceptible to fire. So I definitely would, with a little bit of buffing, they could be really solid. Now, for the rest of this comp, get some decent anti-large options. If your opponent decides to go heavy on Dragon Princes, I could see you having some issues, because there's not that much cav here. You're basically relying on the Blood Statue of Spite and your Temple Guard, I guess, maybe the Horned Ones to carry the day. But against these fairly common builds with Swordmasters and stuff like that, this is, I think, actually pretty competitive, because especially the Croc Scourge, they just mulch through these cheaper, or not cheaper, but these elite infantry units really, really effectively. As for Elder Basilisk build, I think it's a little interesting. I mean, it's not necessarily the build I would go for. I do think, though, they did bring most of the counters you would normally want against most common Lizardmen builds. The Swordmasters will decisively crush any Lizardmen infantry. Flamespire Phoenix and Star Dragon and Lariel, that gives you, as well as all that shooting, gives you some good goonage and some good high mass stopping power against monsters. Definitely not bad in that sense. And then you've got the decent amount of shooting just to volley people down over time. Perhaps just a little bit narrow. I don't know how you could widen this build. If you dump the Flamespire Phoenix, I guess you could throw in an extra 2 spears. Maybe spears and White Lion. I think you could fit that in for that cost. So that might be my two. I don't like the Dryads, I guess, either. They did get 42 kills here, but most of that was probably against Skinks. I think you're better off just relying on spears and relying on other tools to be doing the damage. Dryads, I don't know, they don't have much going for them in this matchup. Regardless, though, good game. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and hopefully fun to watch. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe below to keep up with additional content. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, do not hesitate to post them down below, and I will do my best to respond. As usual, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.